Hello everyone, my name is Ruimin, and today I'm going to talk about my final project, septic shock prediction. Sepsis is the leading cause of death in the United States, with mortality highest among patients who develop septic shock. Only aggressive treatment decreases morbidity and mortality. However, general purpose illness severity scoring system cannot distinguish with high sensitivity and specificity which patients are at highest risk of developing specific condition. So in this project, we will use supervised learning and Mimic3 databases to train a predictor model that identifies patients at highest risk of developing septic shock in the future. To be more specifically, we will try to reproduce and improve the model from Harris using backdata tool that is Spark. And we will closely follow the key steps in building a predictor model, that is steps listed here. As the first step, the goal of this project is to predict which patients will develop a septic shock, and we find a record in a diagnosis table. That is, the show title is septic shock, and this is what we want. So we define cases and controls as follows. We define cases as those who have a record in the table diagnosis with ICD-9 code equal to 78552 and controls as those who without a record in this table. In the cohort construction step, since we are using Mimic3 databases, which compromises de-identified health-related data associated with patients who stayed in the ICU, we include all of them in our project. The tables relevant to our study are the 6 tables listed here. In the future construction steps, since we are using the ICD-9 code to define controls and cases and controls, we cannot infer the onset of septic shock. The reason is that there's no timestamps associated with diagnosis in Mimic3. So after we dig into the Mimic3 database a little bit and find that there's timestamps associated with ICU stays, and we will need to take advantage of that information. So we will define cases index date as the specific time point after the patient has been transferred into the ICU, and we will define the observation window as usual. For the feature selection, since the original paper was using Mimic2 databases and we are using Mimic3 databases here, we cannot find all the corresponding mappings used in the original paper. So we will only use a subset of the features used there. The features fall into 3 categories, that is vital signs, laboratory, test result, and clinic. Now we have figured out what we want to predict and who we will use to make the prediction and what features is used in this prediction. We will go and try a prediction model. Since this is a classification problem, we will try all these popular classification algorithms such as logistic regression, support vector machines, and random forest. To evaluate our model, we will split our data randomly into training samples and testing unseen samples. We will use the training sample to develop a model and test the trained model on the unseen samples. The metrics we focus here is the area on the curve. The result is the experiment is carried out on AWS, and we will focus on 3 parts. The first part is the area on the curve. The AUC for 3 models is listed here. As we can see, SVM performs much worse than logistic regression and random forest. Well, these two can achieve an AUC around 0.75, SVM can only achieve an AUC around 0.68. And between logistic regression and random forest perform a little bit better. The second issue we focused is scalability. So that's the reason why we use Sparks, the framework. To start, we choose the logistic regression and fix the index date to be 12 hours after the patient has been transferred into IUC, and we use different number of calls for our computation. As we can see, the computation time drops in the beginning. That's because the computation is done parallel across different work nodes. However, after this point, the computation time did not drop further. This is because the communication time comes into play, and it increases dramatically. Lastly, we do some parameter tuning for random forest. The two parameters we choose here is maximum depth and the number of trees. As we can see, the best AUC we can achieve is around 0.763, with the number of trees set to 200 and maximum depth set to 7. This is the reference to our project, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.